So next is the chemical parameters that are used to assess the quality of crude herbal drugs, and these chemical parameters are largely divided into two categories. One is quantitative parameters that largely deals with the quantity of a particular or the value of a particular parameter, and second is the qualitative parameters where we just assess the presence or absence of a particular constituent or a class of phytoconstituents. Now, quantitative parameters are further categorized into two types. One is the journal parameters and second is the chemical assays. Journal parameters include acetyl value, saponification value, acid value, ester value, bitterness value, swelling index and volatile oil content, whereas chemical assays include the determination of the total content of a particular phytochemical class, whether these are alkaloids or flavonoids, glycosides or tannins, or we can also determine the quantity of a particular phytoconstituent if it is known. So first I will be discussing about the journal parameters, and in these parameters first one is the acid value. Now acid value is a value of a fat or an oil, and it is indicative of the acidity of that particular oil or a fatty substance. Now, this is due to the formation of the free fatty acids because of the degradation of the oil, oxidative degradation or rancidification of the oil. Now, during the rancidification or oxidation or oxidative degradation of the oil, the triglycerides present in the oil, they get degraded into the free fatty acids as well as glycerol, and the free fatty acids that are formed, that indicates the acidity of the oil or the fat. Now it is largely defined as the number of the potassium hydroxide or number of the milligram of potassium hydroxide that is required to neutralize the free acids present in 1 gram of the oil or fat. So as I told you earlier that when the oil get oxidatively degraded or it gets rancidified, the triglycerides that are present in the sample, they get degraded into glycerol and the free fatty acids. Now the amount of the potassium hydroxide that is required to neutralize those free fatty acids represents the acid value of that given oil or a fatty substance. Now how it helps in checking the identity or adulteration or quality of a crude drug, that can be explained with the help of these examples. Now castor oil should not have more than 2% of the acid value. Now if the acid value of castor oil is more than 2%, one can easily say that either the castor oil has been rancidified or it has undergone oxidative degradation, or the castor oil has been adulterated with some other low quality oil. Now olive oil, we all know that, next example is of olive oil. We all know that olive oil is having a high nutritious value and is a very costly oil. It should not have acid value more than 1%, and it is largely calculated as the content of oleic acid, which is the major component of olive oil. Now in case of lower grade olive oils which may have exposed to certain oxidative degradation or rancidification, they have a slightly higher acid value, that is up to 5%, and the least grade olive oils which are normally used for technical purposes, they may have acid value up to 30%. So this is how you can see you can clearly see that as the quality of the oil lowers, the acid value increases. So the higher acid value basically indicates a poor quality oil, and the lower acid value indicates a good quality oil. Now we can also differentiate a crude oil and a refined oil with the help of this acid value. Now since the refined oil is an oil that is obtained by purification of the crude oil, it is less liable towards the oxidative degradation or rancidification, and therefore it will have a lower acid value than the crude oil. As you can see in the example that the crude sunflower oil has an acid value of 120, whereas the refined sunflower oil is having value less than 1. So you can just imagine the difference in the acid values of a crude oil as well as the refined oil. Now these fixed oils are also used for delivering certain drugs, and they are used as vehicles, specifically if you want to administer a drug through parenteral route, and this is their major pharmaceutical application of these fixed oils, as they act as vehicles for administration of parenteral drugs. And since we have to administer these oils in human beings, they should have high purity, and therefore the acid value has been restricted for less than 1 for such kind of oils. So in the nutshell, we can say that the oils which are used as vehicles for parenteral administration of drugs, they should not have acid value more than 1% or 1. Next parameter is the saponification value, and it is the number of milligram of potassium hydroxide required to neutralize the fatty acids resulting from the complete hydrolysis of 1 gram of the substance, or we can also define it as the amount of potassium hydroxide required to saponify or hydrolyze the fatty esters. So as I earlier told you that the oil largely contained triglycerides, and the amount of potassium hydroxide required to saponify those esters into free fatty acids as well as glycerol, we call it as saponification value. Now the saponification value also helps in giving us an idea about the length of the fatty acid chain and the molecular of the fats or the fatty acids that are present in the given sample. Now lower the saponification value will indicate the longer chain fatty acids, and longer chain fatty acid in turn will have higher molecular weight. So one can say if a fat is having lower saponification value, it will have a longer chain fatty acids, and it will have higher molecular weight fat or fatty acids, and vice versa. If a molecule is having high saponification value, then it will indicate that the sample contains short chain fatty acids, and they will have a lower molecular weight. Now saponification, as in case of acid value and other physical parameters, saponification value also helps in the identification as well as in assessing the quality of the crude herbal drug. In case of soybean oil, the saponification value is of 193. In case of cottonseed oil, it is having a range of 193 to 195. Palm oil is having a saponification value range of 196 to 205. Coconut oil from 246 to 260, and butter from 220 to 253. So if there is a variation in the saponification value or the range of these crude drugs, one can easily assess that either these drugs have been oxidatively degraded, or they are adulterated with some other oil or fat to improve or to attain certain economical benefits. So this is how saponification value basically helps in the identification as well as in assessing the quality of the crude drugs. Next we have is the acetyl value, and it is the number of milligrams of potassium hydroxide that are required to neutralize the acetic acid that is obtained by the hydrolysis of the acetylated fat or the fatty substance or any other substance. Or it is also defined as the measure of the hydroxy acid present in a lipid, because these hydroxy acids are basically reacted with potassium hydroxide. So larger the hydroxy acids, more will be the acetyl value. So because as the oil is first acetylated with acetic anhydride, and this acetic anhydride combines with any free hydroxyl groups that are present in the given substance, either it is an oil or a fatty substance, so it will have a higher acetyl value. And we can see in the example of castor oil, it is rich in ricinoleic acid, and as you can see in its structure, it is having 2 hydroxyl groups, and therefore it is having a high acetyl value of 150, because acetic anhydride gets combined with these hydroxyl group that are present in the ricinoleic acid to give a higher acetyl value. Now the oils which are having lower hydroxy acids content, they have a lower acetyl value, as I have already explained you The higher the acetyl value, higher the hydroxy acid content, or vice versa. Now, with the oxidative degradation of the oil or rancidification, there is an increase in the free hydroxy acids, and therefore, when there is an increase in the free hydroxy acid, there is an increase in the acetyl value of the fat or the oil. So, this is how basically the acetyl value helps in the assessing the quality. So, if the acetyl value of a given substance is more than the standard value or the value prescribed in the monograph, we can say that the given sample of that particular oil or fat, either it is oxidatively degraded or rancidified, or it has been mixed with certain lower quality fat or the oil. Next we have is the parameter is the ester value, and it is the difference between the saponification and the acid value of the given sample. Or we can also define it as the number of milligrams of potassium hydroxide that are required to saponify the esters contained in 1 gram of the sample. Now, this ester value is specifically useful for the drugs which fall under the category of balsams, volatile oils, and fixed oils. Now, according to British Pharmacopoeia, the ester value of cardamom oil should fall between 90 to 156, and if there is any variation in the ester value of the given sample of cardamom oil, we can say that either the oil has been degraded, is of poor quality, or it has been adulterated with some other oil. And lastly, we can also infer that the given oil may not be of the cardamom, the given sample of the oil may not be of cardamom oil. Now, the next parameter is iodine value, and it is the amount of iodine in grams that is taken up by 100 gram of the oil, fat, or a wax. Now, it gives an measure of the unsaturation present in the oil. So, higher the unsaturation, higher is the susceptibility of the oil towards its oxidative degradation or rancidification, and higher the unsaturation means higher iodine value. So, if a substance is having a higher iodine value, we can say that it is more susceptible to oxidative degradation or rancidification, because the unsaturation in that oil will increase as compared to the normal oil. Now, waxes have a lower iodine value as compared to that of oils, and like other parameters, this parameter also helps in assessing the quality as well as purity of a fatty substance. So, I have taken example of castor oil, olive oil, and arachis oil, and they have an iodine value of 84, 79 to 88, and 86 to 106 respectively. Now, in comparison to the oils, you can see that the waxes have a very low iodine value, because they have very less unsaturation in the lipids that are present in the waxes. So, as you can see, beeswax is having an iodine value of 8 to 11, and carnauba wax is having an iodine value range from 10 to 14. So, this is how basically iodine value helps in assessing the quality of the fatty substance. Next, we have the peroxide value, and it is milliequivalent of oxygen, the quantity of peroxide contained in 1000 gram of substance as determined by the prescribed methods. Now, peroxide value also helps in determining the extent of rancidification in a given fatty substance, whether it is a oil or any other fatty substance. Now, what happens during oxidation is that there is a liberation of peroxides, and these peroxides further gets converted into aldehydes and ketones. Now, the value of these peroxide is determined, and this indicates the extent of the oxidation of a given oil. Now, the peroxide value is for the refined oil is typically low as compared to that of the crude oil. As you can see in the example, the refined oils of olive, borage, or evening primrose, they have a typical peroxide value of 10. And if these oils are to be used as vehicle for the parenteral administration of certain drugs, then the maximum allowed peroxide values for these oil is 5. So lower the peroxide value, lesser is the unsaturation, less liable they are towards the oxidative degradation. So this is how peroxide value helps in the assessing the quality of a fatty substance or a oil. Next is the anisidine value. Now anisidine value is another method by which you can determine the extent of rancidification, and this is determined photometrically, and it depends upon the colored complex that is formed between the aldehydes and ketones and anisidine. Now, as I already told you that the peroxides that are liberated when the oil is degraded, those peroxides get converted into aldehydes and ketones. So one can say that if the oil is degraded or of poor quality, they will have higher amount of aldehydes and ketones, and since they will have higher amounts of aldehydes and ketones, they will form more complex with anisidine, and one will have a higher anisidine value. In the nutshell, or in the crux, you can say that poor quality oils, or the oils which are oxidatively degraded or rancidified, they will have higher anisidine value because they will have more peroxides, and more peroxides mean they will have more aldehydes and ketones. Now anisidine value is largely used for the evaluation of oils obtained from fish, such as cod liver oil and salmon oil, which has maximum anisidine value allowed of 10. Peroxide value is the more acceptable or more followed method in case of pharmacopoeial evaluation than the anisidine value, which is largely in case of the fish oils. Now there are certain miscellaneous chemical methods such as bitterness value, which is largely used for those drugs which are to be used as bitters, and I will not go into the detail of this parameter because in these we normally used quinine sulfate as a reference substance, and different dilutions of quinine sulfate as well as the test substance are prepared, and these dilutions are tasted, and there is a specific formula given by which through which you can calculate the bitterness value of a substance. Now next specific parameter is the swelling index, and it is specific for those drugs which are rich in mucilage or the drugs which are specifically used for their swelling character. Say for example, isabgol is there, and we all know that isabgol is used for relieving constipation, because when isabgol enters into intestine, it absorbs the water, it increases the bulk by its swelling property, and which increases the peristaltic movements of our intestine and helps in relieving the constipation. So the drugs which are required for the swelling properties, isabgol is one example, other example could be different gums. Swelling index is the parameter which is used for assessing their quality. And the third parameter is the volatile oil content, and as their name indicates, it is largely used for those drugs which are rich in volatile oil, and there are different methods by which you can determine the volatile oil content, which and these methods we will discuss later on when we will discuss discuss about the volatile oils. So the next class of the chemical parameter is the chemical assays, and as I earlier told you that this include the determination of the total content of a particular phytochemical class, that is total alkaloidal content, total flavonoid content, total glycosidic content. Now different colorimetric methods are available by which one can easily determine the total content of a particular phytochemical class. Say for example, in case of alkaloid, we normally use atropine sulfate as a standard alkaloid, and there is a specific colorimetric method or spectrophotometric method by which one can easily assess or determine the total alkaloidal content, and the results are expressed as milligram equivalent to atropine sulfate, which is used as a reference or a standard alkaloid. Similarly, in case of flavonoids, we use quercetin normally as a standard reference, and the results of the total flavonoid content of a drug are expressed as milligram equivalent to that of quercetin. So this is basically how the chemical assays go. Now, besides the determination of the total content of a particular phytochemical class, we can also determine the content of a particular phytoconstituent or a compound, and that phytochemical constituent is either responsible for the identification of a drug, or it could be responsible for the biological activity of that particular drug. And if the component either it is responsible for its identification or its biological activity, we call that compound or a phytoconstituent as a marker compound. And these marker compounds can be determined using TLC densitometry, HPTLC, HPLC, GC or other chromatographic techniques. And once their content is determined, and we specify their percentage for a given drug. Say for example, in case of Senna, it is written that the given sample should not have less than 2% of senosides calculated as senoside B according to British Pharmacopoeia. So if any drug which is having lesser amount of senoside, less than 2% of senoside content, which is calculated as senoside B, we can say that the given sample of Senna leaflet is of poor quality, or the glycosidic content has been degraded due to improper storage or drying procedures. So this is how basically the quantitative determination of a particular constituent or the chemical assays help in assessing the quality of a given crude drug sample. Next we have the qualitative chemical evaluation, and as I told you, it largely deals with the presence or absence of a given class of the phytoconstituent, and it involves first is the phytochemical screening, in which we determine the presence or absence of a particular phytochemical class, and for that we perform different chemical tests, such as in case of alkaloids. If you want to determine whether the alkaloid is present or absent in the given sample, we have to perform certain chemical tests such as Mayer's reagent, Mayer test, Dragendorf test, Hager's test or Wagner's test, and depending upon the results obtained from these tests, one can assess that whether the alkaloids are present or absent in the given sample. Similarly, for flavonoids, we go for Shinoda's test or magnesium ribbon test, and by seeing the results of these chemical tests, we can say whether the given sample is having flavonoids or not. Likewise, there are chemical tests for detecting the presence or absence of steroids, triterpenoids, anthraquinone glycosides, and cardiglycosides, and so on and so forth. Now, qualitative chemical analysis or evaluation can also be done on the basis of fingerprinting profiles. Now, it is said that two plants cannot have a same chromatographic profile, and therefore these chromatographic profiles are known as fingerprint profiles. So different fingerprint profiles either of TLC, HPTLC, HPLC or GC are used for qualitative analysis or evaluation of the crude drug. And as you can see in the slide, I have taken a TLC fingerprint profile of Cassia angustifolium leaf, Cassia angustifolium pods and Cassia senna pods. As you can see, there is a variation, a difference in the TLC profiles of Cassia angustifolium leaf and Cassia angustifolium pods, though they are of the same plant but different parts. One is leaf and one is pod. Still, you can see the difference in the TLC profile of the two parts of the same plant. Similarly, if we compare the pods of Cassia senna and angustifolia, there is difference in the TLC profile, and one can easily assess by observing the TLC profile about the identity of a particular crude drug, as well as we can also assess whether the given drug has been adulterated with some other drug or not, because in that case also there will be a change in the TLC profile of the given drug. Here you can see it is an HPTLC profile of a crude drug, and the first figure shows you different peaks that are obtained in when an extract of a given drug was run on a TLC plate, and second figure shows you the different samples of the same drug. First 4 samples are of a leaf and second 4 samples are of the roots, and here you can also see the variation in the TLC profile or HPTLC profile of these drugs. And the last is the biological evaluation, and it is largely done to evaluate the biological activity of a particular given sample. And there are different methods, in vitro and in vivo. In vitro methods are used when you have to perform the test outside the living cell and living system, and in vivo tests are performed when the test sample is given in the living system, that is in case of rodents or other experimental animals. And you can see in this slide different activities can be assessed by different in vitro methods and in vivo methods. And I'll just pick one example. In case of, if you want to evaluate the memory enhancing activity of a particular drug, you can evaluate that substance by in vitro test through acetylcholinesterase inhibitory or butyrylcholinesterase inhibitory activities. And because acetylcholine is a substance which is mainly responsible for the memory function in our brain, so we can assess the memory enhancing activity by evaluating the acetylcholinesterase inhibitory activity of the substance. And in case of in vivo testing, we can go for scopolamine or STZ induced memory impairment test, where scopolamine or streptozotocin is injected in the animals, and we can assess the effect on the memory. So friends, this was about the physicochemical and a very brief outline of the biological evaluation of the crude drugs, and how these parameters help in identification of a crude drug. They also help in assessing the quality of a crude drug, as well as in detecting the adulteration of the crude drugs. Thank you.